Hello there, Reason Users, PoohBear here, and welcome to my channel. I did a video the other day which is called Switch Between Instruments Using a Single Foot Pedal. Someone's asked a question on there, how can they use one PolyStep sequencer and when they switch patterns they can actually switch which instrument it's going to play. So I'm going to show you a couple of different methods of how to do this. So my current setup is, I just got a PolyStep here sitting on top of a combinator. I've got this select program which we used the other day as well. It's not wired up. I've got these receive notes which are sitting on the ID8s and they're not wired up either. So nothing's actually wired up. We've just got this sitting on here. So obviously if I was to hit play here, we've got all four sounds playing. And obviously what we want to do is make sure we select one for each of them. So there's a couple of different methods I say we can do. So we're going to do it the straightforward way to start with. And so I'm just going to flip round to the back. And the first thing I'm actually going to do is I want to wire up my select program. So I'm going to go from the out to the in. I'm going to go from the out to the in. I'm going to go from the out and we're going to come down here to the in. And I'm going to go from the out and I'm going to come all the way down to the in. Bosh, done. So that will now mean that obviously when we move this up, we're going to be selecting different instruments. So far, so good. Brilliant. Now, one of the things what the PolyStep actually has, it has got some CV modes on it. So we can actually make use of these CV modes for the simple way of doing it. But there's going to probably be a couple of gotchas along the way because these CV signals are a real pain to dial in, but we'll have a go and we'll see if we can might have to use one or two different workarounds. So on the back we've got ourselves our CV1, so I'm going to take my CV1 out here and I'm going to come all the way down and I'm going to put it into the in select on the select program. So now theoretically, and I don't think I can do this live, as in, so oh by the way, I'm going to click on this one, hold the shift key down on the keyboard, click on this, scroll along, so when you do that, they all move at the same time. If not, you'd be just doing them individually, and these are a real pain to dial in. So the first things first is I'm going to actually have to hit play, or run, should I say, so let's get run going. And as you can hear, you can see there's absolutely no sound. Why? Because if you now look down here, we're actually on program 40, so if I was to grab these and pull them all the way down, so there's program 1, let's go up a little bit. There we go. So that was program 0. I think of it as 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's my brain converting it. And if we go up a little bit more, oh, we've jumped 5, 6. Right. So what it is, this scaling, I cannot, and I've got my mouse on precise. I just can't get it to dial in some of the numbers. You can see it's jumping around, which isn't going to be a problem. Well, it is a problem, but it's not going to be a problem for us. So what I'm going to actually do now is I'm going to take that select in and I'm actually going to put it into, oh, let me just drop it there for the moment. Let's go into editor and I will drop it into a CV in. So there we go. We'll put it into this. And I think maybe I should have it on a unipolar. I would have said unipolar would be the way I need to go for this. So let's flip round back to the front. And then this time what I'm going to do is we're going to select that program. So that's select program. We're going to come down here, CV1, Bosch, in here. We're going to select what the program's going to be. And what we're going to do is we're going to scale this right down. So by scaling it down, this means that we've got a lot more flexibility up the top there. So as we've only got 8 patterns, I could scale this all the way down, I suppose, to 7. So we're going from 0 to 7, which will give me 8 different patterns. I can select up to 8 different programs. So now let's actually have a look and see if we can get this dialed in. So if I was to get rid of the editor, we should get everything on the screen at the same time. Obviously, I'm going to have to hit run again. Well, let's go on to pattern number 2 and let's dial that in. So again, I've got to hold my shift key down, go all the way across, and there we go, we've got number 1 straight away. Let's go to number 3. I think that was number 3. In fact, 3 should be number 2, shouldn't it? So that's my bad. There we go. Hey, we've got that straight away. You can see how much easier it is when you do this, and now this just needs to be number 3. So there we go. So let me just zoom out a little bit. He says, so now when we select, and obviously we're going back to 0 again because that's what the CV set to. So we just need to dial them in. And that is basically it. That's now working. We can now select different patterns and we can play different sounds. But me being me, I'm not totally happy with this as a solution because I've either got to use a single knob to select which pattern, and yeah, I just find that a little bit awkward. I might want to jump from pattern 1 to 4 or pattern 1 to 7. Don't forget, we can obviously have a lot more instruments, and I want to sort of jump around really easy. So hey, guess what? I did another video about that, didn't I? And I actually created this simple patch here, which is called Pattern Changes on Players. So basically, when we change, we can assign a button to these. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say to myself, right, this actually works from a special thing called the HAMU, so which I'll come back to that in a second. So now when I start pressing the buttons, and I'm pressing the buttons on my controller, I can scroll around different patterns. Yay! So that's quite handy. But for that to work, we've got to have the PolyStep sequencer inside. Also, at the moment, this is only set up to play one instrument, which would sound, I suppose, something like... I happen to have a sequencer running as well, so I'm changing both patterns. So how are we going to then get this sort of merged in with this? And it's not actually as hard as it sounds. We've got to have the player actually sitting inside the combinator, because the combinator is feeding from this HAMU, and the HAMU itself is when I actually select these different buttons here. You can actually see up the top here, they're working. So you can obviously go and watch that video to see exactly how this works. It's quite straightforward how it's actually working. I'm just taking a few CV signals, passing it through, setting up and choosing a pattern based on the CV signal. So let's actually get this working a very quick, dirty way. One of the first things I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to replace this with Spark, because obviously it's going to be making a sound. I don't want that, so let's go into Devices, and I'm just going to go for W.A.O. There we go. Let's grab my visualizer. I'm going to highlight over the Respire, replace that. So now when we have things playing, he says, I need this playing as well, don't I? We can have some pretty lights. Hey, very nice. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have to get the MIDI data from here over into here. So we can actually use a couple of different players for this. Now, if you've got, and I'm going to go for CV. Obviously, if you've got the Midi-CV converter, that is what I'll actually use at this particular stage. If you've only got the CV tap, then you can obviously wire that up. There's quite a lot of wires. So just for quickness, I'm actually going to use the CV converter. Oh, in fact, I'll grab this so I can show you both at the same time. Why not? Now, this is where I'm going to cheat. I'm going to grab this and make a copy of that. Cool. I'm going to grab that, make a copy of that. And so really with this one, it's just literally taking the gating note and wiring it up to here and here and here and here, and you're just going to go on and so forth, yeah? So there's nothing actually very, very special what we're doing here. And you just got to do this for all of the channels, yeah? Bit of a pain. With this one, it's quite straightforward. We can take the output, we can put it into the input, we can take the output, we go into the input, job done. So I'm actually going to delete these two out, but you get the idea. And all I'm going to do now, he says, sorry, there's a delete, sorry, it's on the screen, you can't see it, there we go, it's just saying delete that device, bosh, so you're not missing anything. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this one now, and I'm going to sit it over here, and we can sit it obviously on top of this combinator if we want to, so we're then going to pass the MIDI signal all the way through. As I say, we're going to be dirty. However, at the moment, we need to be able to control this particular device here, and to do that, I'm going to control it from this one over here. So I'm just going to take that CV, put it over to that CV1, so that's controlling one. However, this device, I know for a fact, doesn't have any of the CV data that we've actually added in. As you can see, it's actually all over the place, this particular data. So I'm just going to quickly right click and go copy patch over here, right click, paste patch, And the reason I'm copying and pasting the patch is because obviously this particular player is set up within the editor, so obviously when we set up the HAMU to select the different patterns, that still works. So then theoretically I should be able to hit play and this should all actually be now playing over here. So there's that one. Then we've got a bass, kind of a piano. Let's change that. There's a slightly different sound, and this one. And in fact, let's power that one off altogether. And now we're going to be hearing this only. There we go. So now we've got that working. And to be honest, if I now want to bring this all inside of one combinator, I can actually do that as well. I'm actually going to delete this sequence that's out of the way, just because it's taken up a little bit of screen estate. We're going to leave all this stuff in here. Now, I suppose the simple way to do it would be literally to drag all of this from here and we drop it into the bottom. And then what I'd actually do is one of two ways. Again, there's always so many different ways we can do things in Reason. A simple way would be to say, hey, I'm going to grab all of this stuff over as a dirty way. We will have to obviously just do a little bit of setting up again. So I'm going to drag this all the way over and drop it in here. This is my MIDI converter, so I'm just going to come into the back of this, and there's a couple of different ways I can do this. So I'm doing this because I'm being lazy, and I put them all here together because it's just easy to wire up then. Actually, I probably don't even need that many. And so I'm going to wire that one into that one, that one into that one. And I've obviously done a combinator for this as well, which is in my Dropbox, which I'll put a link to. And now it's just going to be a simple case of, I'm actually going to zoom out to do this, if you don't mind. Sorry if it's looking small, it just means I can grab each of these and I'm literally going to sit them on top of the receive notes of each of the instruments. There we go, bom, 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 bom. Bom, 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 bom. As I say, this is a little bit of a dirtier way that I'm actually going to do this. So now if we think about what we've got going on, we've got to replicate which we had going on in here over in this particular combinator at the top here. So let me zoom back in again so we can do this now. Here we go. So obviously this CV1 is now, well, CV1's, I've actually occupied them, so we're going to have to go to CV3. Again, I'm going to switch this straight over onto unipolar. There we go. So we've got ourselves a unipolar signal coming in. Then we flip round to the front, bom, bom, bom. And where we need to find it, it's just going to scroll down. There we go. There's my select program. There's my select program. And that's CV3 now. Oh, I can zoom in a bit more as well. Sorry. He says, can he? Oh, everything's locking up here now. It's all going to pot. I'm going to do... Oh! So I've done that unsurprised. And I'm going to scroll that down to 7, remember? So we're going from 0 to 7. So that now should be working. Is the zoom out going to work this time? Yes, the zoom's working out. And so... yeah, I suppose that should be it, really. Zoom out again. Yay, and we're all working. Cool. Sorry, I went through that very, very quickly, that last little bit, but I suppose all I've done is I've copied my stuff over. This is my CV-ing, which is now coming from here, which is obviously on CV3, which was on CV1 over there before. We obviously set up the CV to actually then control this one here, so we're now selecting controlling that, and that's obviously doing what we did before. I suppose the only difference is we've got these MIDI devices now sitting on top. So this is, I've virtually kind of set up in a way that this is how the combinator was working before. The MIDI signals come into all of them, and then you can obviously step it out. Now, obviously, there's other ways we can actually come along and we can do things a little bit fancy. We can actually do things with the MIDI converter, like turn them on and off, or enable or disable them, so we can actually stop the MIDI signal coming down. But I think this is a lot easier way of doing it. So there we go. A couple of different ways of how we can actually change the pattern on a player device. Doesn't actually necessarily have to be PolyStep, but PolyStep's obviously got the CV signals, which is really handy. We can use the signals from other players as well. But what about if you've got a player that doesn't actually have a signal? To be perfectly honest, we've actually got the answer here already for us, and it should actually work. We should be able to get this wired up quite quickly. So let's quickly do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use, this is my RVL. God, yeah, the RVL, which is already set up, and this is obviously selecting our different patterns. So because it's selecting our different patterns at the top, we could probably get it to select our different programs as well. I can't see why not, he says. So I'm just going to flip round to the back of the rack, he says. So it's coming into CV1. So I suppose theoretically, if I come down to receive note. Oh, here we go. We actually got it highlighted already. Select program. And I'm actually going to just change that to CV1. Let's see what's actually going to happen. We're actually working, aren't we? Are we or are we not? Here we go. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, we're working. I know I sound surprised myself when I said that. I suppose it always surprised me when I actually just wire something up, which was wired up with something else, and it works. So, yep, it is working brilliantly, because obviously these particular values are going to scale down, and we've scaled everything down. So you can now use this on any player device. We're not even having to wire this CV stuff up. So, you know, so if I was to come here and I'm going to grab that and make them all 0. That's proof in the pudding. Proof in the pudding. Again, we're going to come down. So now I'm going to use my controller to select different programs. There we go. Brilliant. Number 8, hey, which is 7, which is cool. So I was hitting button 7. So it's like if I hit button 1, it's program 0, which we want, which is obviously number 0. 1. Oh, 1 and 0. Oh, shut up, PoohBear. Right. You got it. You got it. So you've got several different ways of how we can do this and how we can wire this up. It's all a bit of fun. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll drop this new one in my Dropbox for you. I'd say what the name is. I'm going to obviously change the name. Probably call it pattern switching different instruments or something. Pattern switching, pattern changes on players per instrument. I don't know, something like that, yeah. So look out for that in the Dropbox. You can obviously then just sort of pull that up and you would be actually up and running. This is a free device, this is a free device, this is a paid device. It's worth actually buying. It does go on sale every now and then. As I say, you could use the CV taps and you can really sort of string them together. I find the CV taps with poly signals sometimes get stuck notes here and there, does some funny things. At the same time, that CV tap I definitely use for doing other things. It's absolutely brilliant, especially when you want to convert like especially mono signals and converting it into a MIDI signals. I find that CV tap really essential for doing that sort of thing. Even though you can do it with this one, I just find that one just a lot easier for some reason. So yeah, so that's the only paid device really I'm actually using here. Everything else, obviously, that's going to be a paid device. I don't know what that came free with. I think I got that with my suite, to be honest. Or and if you've got Plus, you're going to have that. But yeah, so that's the only paid device I'm using here. CV tap is free. These are all free devices as well. But yeah, so if I drop the patch up, you can have it. I'm really waffling, really am sorry. But there we go. I've answered that question of how can you play different pattern, different instrument. Thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.